elections closed with a 65.34% turnout. The president, Daniel Ortega's Sandinistas Front for the National Liberation, secured victory with 74.99% of the votes. The United States reopens its land and air borders Monday to foreign visitors who are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Sudan's security forces repressed protesters who staged a new civil disobedience campaign against the army. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your host, Gladys Quesada. Now we begin with the news. The first official report of the Supreme Electoral Council of Nicaragua certified and validated the re-election of President Daniel Ortega after the general elections held on Sunday. With the scrutiny of 49.25% of the tallies, the Supreme Electoral Council informs that the formula Daniel Ortega Rosario Murillo obtained 74.99% of the votes counted. In this way, the government of the Sandinista National Liberation Front will lead the country until the year 2027. In the second place was Walter Espinosa of the Constitutionalist Liberal Party with 14.40% of the votes counted. Citizen participation reached 65.34% with more than 1,400,000 votes cast. Thousands of Nicaraguans rejoiced after the announcement and took to the streets in sign of support to the re-election of Ortega and Murillo as legitimate leaders of Nicaragua. And during the voting day, President Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo cast their vote as part of the democratic exercise in the Central American nation.
It does not kill anyone. The vote does not cause injury to any person. The vote does not call for terrorism. The vote does not call for war. The vote does not call for tanks in the country and for the economy to be paralyzed and for families to be destroyed. The vote does not call for torture.
President Daniel Ortega also said that the people of Nicaragua succeeded in neutralizing the terrorist acts of 2018 that sought to impose a climate of violence in the country.
We managed to put an end to terrorism, re-establish peace and stabilize ourselves, and not only stabilize but also advance in the welfare and progress of Nicaraguan families, which is what our people wants, which is what humanity wants. Humanity does not want war, does not want blood. Humanity wants peace, progress, and welfare.
President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, congratulated the people of Nicaragua for successfully carrying out peaceful elections in the face of the international attacks from the United States government and its allies.
Good news, Ernesto. Good news coming from Nicaragua. Good level of popular participation in today's elections. People in peace participating in the voting centers. We send greetings to the people of Nicaragua. We congratulate you in advance for this day of peace, of participation. To vote in Nicaragua, to vote in Venezuela, is to give a step to peace, to stability, to progress, for the prosperity of our countries. To vote today in Nicaragua is to vote for peace, is to vote for the country, is to vote for stability, for people's tranquility, for the right to be beautiful Nicaragua. Nicaragua is a beautiful country. We know it very well.
232 international delegates accompanying the general elections from 27 countries, mainly Europe, toured polling stations across Nicaragua this Sunday. During the tour, the accompanying delegates checked the list of citizens voting at the station and the conditions guaranteeing the secrecy of the vote. In statements to the press, the foreign delegates pointed out that this is a very important day for the people of Nicaragua.
With the quality of the elections, every polling station, we've been to many here in Leon, have the same rules, have the same access to the voter that the voters have, and access to the representatives of the different political parties, observing every step of the election. It's very transparent. It's very well organized and very impressive. And that's something we don't have in the United States. So I think this is a real reflection of the will of the people of Nicaragua, the way they've set up this election process.
Ann McCurdy. I'm from the United States. I write for Alliance for Global Justice and other media. I'm here as a journalist following the elections. We are in Leon. We began early this morning. We're now at our fourth voting center. This voting center has 10 stations. The other ones we went to all had 13, 15. It seems like in the morning the older people tend to go out and vote, and everyone says really the crowds go out in the afternoon, sort of more the young people. Everything seems to be going fine. I've interviewed the poll watchers. They say in Spanish fiscals, so these are the party members who are here all day watching the election. So you have a board of 3 people who are trained to actually carry out the election, and then each party, and there's 7 parties, can have a poll watcher. So that's important that at least some of the parties are sending their poll watchers out. Problem is that many of the parties don't have that many members, so to find someone to cover more than 13,000 polls is difficult. I'm from the United States.
Hello, greetings from Nicaragua at this election. My name is Alison Bodine. I am from Canada, here to observe the electoral process and have seen a day that is calm, a day in which the people of Nicaragua are expressing their sovereign right to vote without the intervention of the United States, Canada, or their allies. We see here democracy in action, a process that is very transparent and which also has a high level of involvement of young people.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United States reopened its land and air borders to foreign visitors fully vaccinated against COVID-19 on Monday. The measure ends 20 months of restrictions on travel from around the globe that separated families, hurt tourism, and strained diplomatic ties. The ban, imposed by former President Donald Trump in early 2020 and upheld by his successor Joe Biden, has been widely criticized and become emblematic of the upheavals caused by the pandemic. Along the border with Mexico, many cities in the big U.S. states of Texas and California have seen significant economic downturn due to the anti-COVID-19 trade restrictions. Local economies are also impatiently waiting for a return to normal.
Everybody, and we're just waiting for the people, our people, to come and visit us too. You know, it's going to help both El Paso and Juarez businesses and the economy.
We move on to China, where authorities reported that over 3/4 of the population has been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The National Health Commission reported that 1.72 billion people have been immunized, which represents 75.96% of the population. In addition, the government is already providing booster shots to at-risk groups such as the elderly and custom workers. Almost 38 million shots have already been administered. Health authorities insisted that the objective of this action is to counteract the outbreaks, which have been spreading in some provinces since mid-October, which resulted in almost 900 cases of local transmission. Despite China's efforts to counteract the growth of COVID-19 infections, the National Health Commission announced the detection of 74 new positive cases of the virus, of which 50 correspond to local infections. 35 asymptomatic cases have also been confirmed. Health authorities are on high alert, fearing a further increase in the number of infections in some provinces. Africa records more than 8,500,000 infections and around 220,000 deaths as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Africa CDC, the specialized healthcare agency of the African Union, the AU, said the death toll from the pandemic across the continent stands over 219,000. South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia and Ethiopia are among the countries with the most cases in the continent. South Africa has recorded the most COVID-19 cases in Africa with nearly 3 million cases, while the northern African country of Morocco reported 947,307 cases. For its part, Tunisia recorded more than 713,000 contagions and more than 25,000 deaths. We move on to other topics. In Mexico, the migrant caravan resumed its march headed to Oaxaca. The caravan is composed of over 3,000 people from 10 countries. The National Institute of Migration is asking those participating to return to Tapachula, Chiapas State, where they can receive assistance with applying for asylum rather than continuing the dangerous journey north towards the United States. Over 1,000 people took to the streets of Barcelona to protest against rising electricity prices in Spain. Over 100 groups, activists and trade unions, including the Alliance Against Energy Poverty, participated in the mobilization. The protest started at Plaza de la Universitat, demonstrating against last month's electricity prices, which broke several times the highest historical price, making it the most expensive month ever. People of all ages came out to criticize energy bills, which are up 44% on last year, saying it is an abuse on the part of a market controlled by large companies. Organizers claim that between 10% and 15% of the population are living in energy poverty and call for structural reform to reduce electricity prices, especially as winter approaches.
There should be control over the prices. We can't allow basic service to be in the hands of capitalism. There should be more control from the government.
We are talking about basic needs. We need electricity for hygiene and nutrition, and it's incredible that the monopolies of the energy companies should have this kind of control over the prices.
In Italy, at least 800 migrants were rescued in the Mediterranean Sea by a humanitarian ship of the German non-governmental organization CI. The migrants were found on 2 boats in the Mediterranean between Wednesday and Thursday. In the group, there are more than 200 children and 5 pregnant women, CI said in a statement. In addition, some 200 people had to receive medical attention on board. The Ocean Viking, a vessel managed by the European non-governmental organization SOS Mediterranean, is also looking for a port to disembark 314 migrants rescued at sea. We move on to other topics. The head of the Technical Assistance for Volcanic Emergency Plan in the Canary Islands, Rubén Fernández, informed on Saturday that Cumbre Vieja eruption in the island of La Palma had stabilized in recent hours. In a message to the media, Fernandez highlighted the importance of the works that will be carried out in the following days to remove the ashes and the pyroclastic flow with heavy machinery to allow access to the residences affected by significant volcanic residue in the surroundings and covered by debris. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. On Sunday in Sudan, security forces repressed protesters who staged a new civil disobedience campaign against the army, which took over in the coup of October 25th. Summoned by the civil organizations, a group of school teachers gathered on Sunday before the Ministry of Education in an act referred to as a silent protest. The mobilized citizens demand the re-establishing of a civil government that will lead to a democratic transition. This Sunday's protests were killed by security agents who used tear gas grenades to disperse the pacific agglomeration. According to Sudanese medical authorities, the clash already resulted in 14 fatal victims since the beginning of the violent military sector's reaction, a travesty that has prompted upon the current Sudanese de facto regime a series of claims from global community, the state's suspension from the African Union, and budget cuts from international aid providers. Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum visited a volatile border region on Saturday, the scene of an attack earlier in the week where suspected extremists ambushed a self-defense brigade and killed 69 people. The town's mayor was among those killed in Tuesday's attack. Bazoum said that insecurity had increased and compared it to a disease of endemic type, but he sought to reassure presidents that it will not last, promising the government was working to end it. Local self-defense groups have been helping Niger's military to fight extremists who have stepped up attacks on civilians this year. The attacks have been blamed on militants linked to ISIS. The mounting violence poses a strong threat to Bazoum, who was sworn into office in April, only days after security forces thwart an attempted military coup at the presidential palace.
Insecurity has unfortunately not diminished. It has even increased everywhere. It is like an epidemic. It is like a disease of endemic type. But God willing, it will not last. We're working to end it.
The systematic practice of attacks and marginalization of the Palestinian people by the Israeli occupation forces continued on Saturday. In a new attack by Israel, 3 Palestinians suffered injuries in the village of Burin, south of Nablus, in the occupied West Bank. A group of Israeli settlers, apparently from the nearby illegal Israeli settlement of Yitzhar, attacked Palestinian homes in the outskirts of the village and assaulted local residents. Violence and vandalism in the occupied territories is an almost daily event, and these kinds of actions are rarely prosecuted by the Israeli occupation authorities. More than 500,000 Israelis live in Jewish settlements in the occupied East Jerusalem and West Bank in violation of international law. Libya's ruling Presidential Council has suspended Foreign Minister Nakhla Mangoush for administrative violations and barred her from traveling on Sunday. A spokesperson for the council said the 3-member body suspended Mangoush on Saturday for carrying out foreign policy without coordination with the council. There was no immediate comment from the foreign minister, but Libya's transitional government of national unity rejected the council's decision in a statement. The clashes due to the suspension of Mangoush comes after some controversial statements by the foreign minister about the possible extradition of a new suspect, Libyan search by the United States for the Lockerbie attack in 1988, which left a balance of 119 killers. The Iranian government expressed rejection to the policy of maximum pressure and economic terrorism imposed by the United States against Iran, while at the same time demands negotiations with the country. During a telephone conversation, Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian expressed to his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi his rejection of these pretensions of the U.S. government headed by Joe Biden. Meanwhile, he expressed his hope that Washington and the European signatories of the nuclear agreement with Tehran will enter the Vienna talks in a realistic manner so that an agreement could be reached quickly. Wang Yi welcomed the continuation of the talks and blamed the United States for the obstacles to the implementation of the nuclear deal, while calling on the United States government to redeem its mistake by completely removing sanctions against Iran for the negotiations to produce good results. In Iraq, the military informs about a drone attack that struck the residence of Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi in the capital Baghdad with explosives. Reports disclosed that Kadhimi was not injured in the attack. Officials and diplomatic personnel informed that the Prime Minister's residence suffered the impact of at least one explosion and that shots were heard in the surrounding areas during the strike. The operation was labeled a terrorist attack and also by the Interior Ministry of Iraq. It transpired parallel to this past week protests against the result of October's general elections. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.